Ladies and gentlemen of the press, please welcome the President of the FIA, Max Mosley, who will now confirm the punishment handed out to McLaren.
Thank you. I can now confirm that McLaren will be punished with a suspenders sentence. Lucky blighters. Oh, sorry, I've misread that.
Welcome to what is the second of the two lost episodes of Gareth Jones on Speed. If you've been visiting the Gareth Jones on Speed Facebook site, you'll know that over the last 2 weeks we've moved house. And the last episode, which was recorded in the old Jones Towers, was mislaid in a box briefly and has since been found. And this is the first episode to be recorded in the new address, but actually wasn't recorded very nearly because I couldn't find the recorder, which was in a box somewhere with the cat. So, sorry. Hello, how are you? I'm Gareth. Can you hear the sound of a new address?
It's got a little extra echo on this, haven't we?
Yeah.
A different acoustic.
Yeah, and without a creaky floor, actually, if we jump up now.
Oh, I missed the creaky floor.
Yeah. Viewers listening in stereo will also miss the creaky floor. But while we were moving house, quite a lot happened in Formula One, including the small issue of McLaren and the World Motorsport Council, and McLaren were handed a 3-race suspended penalty. We heard that right, didn't we?
Yes, so the gist being they're fine, they can carry on racing. Well, they've actually said it's not just if they make some other transgression during the rest of the season, it's also if new evidence comes to light about the incident that they've...
Is that what they've said?
I think so. I think I read that right. And if that happens, they will be banned for 3 races.
That's a bit of a sword hanging over them. That sounds
yes,
like
it's a bit weird,
there's quite
isn't
an
it?
implied threat.
What are they doing?
Think?
Are they still investigating it, or what? I don't understand that. I don't know whether it's just some kind of generic cut and paste legal statement they've put out there. But can I just also say that the one thing that I'm glad that this is hopefully now all laid to rest, principally because I'm sick of certain branches of the media referring to it as Liegate.
Oh, it's a rubbish name.
Because
isn't it?
I hate
Tags,
the tagging of the suffix gate to any scandal, as if Watergate, which is where this all comes from, was something involving liquid. It wasn't. Watergate was the name of the hotel where that whole thing started, and now everything is something gate. Why has this happened?
Well, also, it's kind of as lazy as describing any little sort of deception or exaggeration as sexing something up. You know?
Yes. But it's also... Watergate comes from US politics, like the Kennedy assassination, the Texas book repository, or the grassy knoll. It's like adding the word knoll to the end of any assassination. Oh, Anwar Sadat was assassinated in Egypt, knoll. It doesn't make sense! So this gate business, I wish it would stop, and I'm certainly glad that this Liegate is over now.
Although I believe there's going to be an expose soon about one of Britain's most popular TV presenters of the 1980s, and an issue regarding the way in which he restricts access to his land. It's going to be called Knowlegate.
I thought you were going to say that a former member of the Goodies was implicated in some scandal, the medically qualified one, and it would be called Garden Gate.
Bringing it back to the actual Liegate, for want of a better word.
That's the last time you're allowed to say that.
I don't want to call it that.
Otherwise, a scandal will erupt, which will be called Gareth Gate. Wasn't he the stammering one off Popeye?
Yes, it would have to be called Gareth Gate, yeah. So the trouble is that Max was actually quite nice about McLaren on a statement I heard today. Did you hear this? It was amazing. He said, well, I thought they've been very honest about it and dealt with it in a very clear way, and you know, their culture's clearly changed. Ron's gone. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Dancing is happy dance.
Well, yeah. You can't help but feel that the fact that Dennis has gone has satisfied the FIA, the powers that be, and that's why they, in the end, didn't get such a hefty punishment. And I think you have to say that punishment, the suspended ban, that's fair. That seems to be reasonable, and there does seem to have been a tendency for the FIA to be a little bit over-strict in its application of rules to McLaren, I think you might say. A little bit over-enthusiastic.
They have already been punished for that. Remember that they lost all the points from Melbourne for that incident. So they have already been punished for it. So it would have been really rubbing their noses in it for the FIA or the World Motorsport Council to apply any further sanctions to McLaren. Really. They've done their best.
What have they done wrong, exactly, that the FIA, and I don't think this is out of turn to say it, that the FIA don't like them? I don't know what it is. I mean, if
absolutely don't know,
anything,
but
Bernie should love them
think
because
it goes back a long way, whatever it is.
he has that obsession with things like all the trucks in the paddock must be parked absolutely perfectly in line, absolutely parallel, all the noses in line, that kind of thing. He's absolutely anal about making Formula One look presentable and ordered on television coverage, so when the chopper shot goes across the paddock, you'll see this sort of like a perfect set of colouring pencils in a box.
And curiously,
Now Ron loves that kind of order.
Exactly, it was Ron who really supported that culture that Bernie loves more than absolutely anyone. You know, there are no oily rags in Ron's garages, and that he was the first F1 boss to literally get rid of the oily rag.
Yeah.
There are no oily rags.
Do you know an amazing fact about the McLaren, what's it called, Paragon, their headquarters in Surrey, that they have electric soap dispensers in the loos. You know the ones, I've seen them, I've only ever seen them in America. He probably had to have them imported, but not only this. You put your hand underneath it, a little motor goes and dispenses a bit of soap into your hands. Now for Ron that wasn't good enough, because he realised that as people withdraw their hand from under the soap dispenser, a little bit extra soap dribbles out onto the sink. So he had the whole electric soap dispenser unit in every loo in McLaren re-engineered, so the motor goes dispenses the soap and then goes into reverse and sucks up residual soap from the nozzle to stop it dripping.
That's wonderful.
Insane, but brilliant.
Although I do believe that there is going to be an inquiry, because that's not actually allowed under the new Formula One regulations for 2009.
Meanwhile, at a school a long, long time ago, in a time frame that doesn't quite make sense if you think about it too hard.
Hello, my name's Ron. I'm the new boy.
Well, Ron, I'm Max, and I'm the head boy here at St Silverstones, so you'll barely well have to do as I say so.
Don't worry, I only like cleanliness and order, so you'll have no trouble with me. Oh, let me use my extremely clean handkerchief to wipe that annoying small stain off the floor.
Stain? That stain is my own personal fag, Bernie. Look here, Dennis. Bernie and I are going to make life very, very difficult for you for a very, very long time.
Oh.
Gareth Jones on Speed, featuring Sniff Petrol!
We're looking at a new F1, well, we're looking at a new McLaren, aren't we? We're certainly looking at a new F1, but a new McLaren without Ron Dennis, with Martin Whitmarsh running the motorsport side of things.
Can you hear that little tinkling? That's not the bell that usually heralds the arrival of TV's Violet Berlin, it's Leon the cat.
Leon, we are so happy
Brilliant.
that you've joined
TV's
the
Leon
team.
the
That's
cat.
so
I put a new bell on him when we moved
He doesn't
house.
usually jangle, but
It's a new bell.
anyway, we digress. I was going to tell you something though about.
I was going to say,
Ron, obviously, for them as what don't know, has officially stepped back from the Formula One team. No longer runs it at all. It's because he's gone back to Woking and McLaren's soap drip free headquarters to set up this new road car operation. Now, something a bit weird happened a couple of weeks ago, where at very, very short notice, a bunch of journalists were invited down to Woking to go and hear this briefing from Ron as he announced that he was leaving the Formula One team to Martin Whitmarsh, and a briefing on the road car. I couldn't go. I was meant to be going and I didn't have time to go down there because it was so short notice. It was weird. And the PR guy who's doing all this is ex-BMW, and I've known him sort of professionally for a while.
Right.
And so I spoke to him and I had to say, look, I'm really sorry I can't make it, but, you know, a bit of notice. And he's come from BMW, who are generally pretty slick PR-wise, and this guy's no mug, and you'd think that he'd have given it a bit of a run-up. But this came personally from Ron. Ron decided he wanted to coincide the announcement of his commitment to only doing road cars with a press conference to say that, and also to show people the new car. And
it sounds like a bit of sort of, you know, expedient, a bit of making the best of
well, quite possibly
an opportunity that was kind of forced on them. I mean, you know, I would guess that, you know, presumably Ron had decided that he was going to step back from the F1 team as a result of what happened in Melbourne.
Although they are vehemently denying this, the official line from McLaren is that Ron's decision has got nothing to do with any sanctions or anything to do with the FIA. Well, I just want to say that. I mean, we all believe it.
Just, you know, that's just how it looks. I mean, you know, albeit for a couple of years he's been saying, as I recall, that he was wanted to step back, and actually he stayed with the team for longer than he'd intended as a result of some of the troubles they've had in the last couple of years, and he wanted to see the team through that, and good for him for doing that. for whatever reason, he must have decided kind of at the last minute that this was a good time to do it. And McLaren do have a wonderful history of doing a very small number of very, very fine road cars.
Oh, yeah. And the new, what's it going to be called? The P2, the P1?
It's codenamed the P11. I think it'll be called something else. I hope it'll be called something else.
Yeah.
P11's a bit of an uninspiring. It sounds like a kettle or something. But no, here's the weird thing. So they invited all these journalists down at very, very short notice, and then they had the car on stage.
Did they?
When Ron came on the code. Now, this is weird. They didn't allow anyone to have any cameras in. You couldn't even take your phone in, apparently.
Of course.
I presume also that anyone who was quite good at sketching was banned. And a friend of mine who's a journalist.
That explains why Tony Hart wasn't allowed in.
And also because, of course, bless him, he's
Rolf
dead.
Harris.
Oh, yeah, that also stopped him.
Rolf Harris was stopped at the door. And that bloke who does all the courtroom stuff on the news as well. You, man, courtroom, get out. And so they had the car, but this mate of mine said afterwards to one of the McLaren people, why didn't you have just the disguised prototype? Disguised prototypes have been photograph testing in northern Sweden and in the UK. So those spy pics are out there. Why not have the grubby, matte black, taped up, glass fibre clad prototype on the stage? Then you've got a physical thing there if you want it, and everyone knows you're working on it. You're not mucking around because it's been up at the Arctic Circle winter testing. But apparently it personally came from Ron as well. This idea had been vaguely suggested, and he didn't, because it looks messy and ugly, and he wanted perfection up on stage. And even just having the car with a sheet over it wasn't enough. He wanted to say, here it is. We're not wasting your time here.
If you're going to show
no one's allowed to really say what it looks like. And I wish I'd been there, because I would have been able to tell you what it looks like, but I can't. So I gather it's all right, but I can't
Not
tell you more
dramatic.
than that. Well,
Right.
everyone I've asked about it has gone, yeah, it's all right, which is a worry, actually, because a supercar should really make you go, oh, wow.
Yeah, not
Have you
just
seen,
all right.
speaking of which, do a search. If you are near Google, or other search engines are available there, but they're rubbish, go and have a look for spy pictures of the Ferrari 430 replacement, because unfortunately Ferrari were rolling a finished example of it but without bumpers on into a truck, and somebody with a long lens got pics of it, and you can certainly get an impression of what the middle section of it looks, and it looks sensational.
Really?
It's got this kind of thing. Imagine a Pagani Zonda. The window line sort of swoops up to the back and then sort of swoops round, and the back window sort of tucks into it. Yeah, it's quite a funny arrangement. It almost looks like a fighter plane, and obviously that's deliberate. It seems like the 430 replacement will have exactly that sort of affair, and it really does. Because what's interesting is that I suppose Ferrari, like Porsche, could continue to make cars that just look the way they've always looked. Ferrari could have endlessly rehashed the Dino, I suppose, as the absolute quintessential mid-engine Ferrari.
Hold on.
Forever.
Hang on. Dino. Let's just have a moment just to think about the Dino. Sorry, I feel better now. I love the two.
I do. I've seen love that car. But no, what they've done is every generation they've sort of updated it. So a 308 doesn't look like... Well, a 348 was a kind of evolution, but then 360 did. The proportions had changed. Got closer, in fact, to a McLaren F1, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Longer front overhang, shorter rear overhang.
Yeah.
But arguably they got less pretty, but at least they'd moved the proportion and the whole sort of stance of the car on a little bit. It seems like the new one, which is rumoured to be called 450, will do that again. I only mention this because, of course, this is what the McLaren's up against, I suspect.
I was about to say...
McLaren is going to cost, rumoured...
The same.
Around that, Gallardo 430, 450 money, which is interesting. It's not a rarefied $1 million Bugatti Veyron style or McLaren F1 style ultra supercar. It's actually
affordable.
Although it sounds, I was trying to find a word that wasn't affordable or everyday, because they both sound like you're just being stupid. It's still a supercar, but do you know something else I read interestingly today? I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit now, but I'm just spewing facts that I've been.
Hang on, before is it also about the new McLaren? Because I want to talk about the new McLaren.
It's a very, very short thing about Ferraris and justifying my use of the word every day, which is that apparently a 599 Ferrari, relatively new design, but needs something like 50 hours maintenance in the first 3 years of its life. The new Ferrari California, which is built on a modular system, so it's built in big chunks like massive Lego, but nicer and more Ferrari Italiano nice.
And even more fun.
Yes. And then you can take it apart in that way as well. So it's more modular construction. I guess they can just drop the engine more quickly and things like that. And I think they were saying something like the California only needs sort of like 9 or 12 hours of attention in the first 3 years of its life, which is a recognition of the fact that it's meant to be a more usable Ferrari, but that in general Ferraris are being used more often by the people who buy them.
Hang on a minute.
There has been this thing, for a little while now, that it's often said that if you want a more usable, everyday Italian car, you have a Maserati, not a Ferrari.
Yeah,
that's true. I dispute that. What are it, 9, 10 hours?
Do you know, I'm just saying things I don't know. I can look it up. Keep speaking.
I'll keep talking.
I'll have a look.
Hang on, just you're good on maths. Between us, you're the mental mathematician. Right. Fuel capacity of Ferrari is about 17 gallons. What's that in litres? That's about 4.5 litres times 17. Yeah, 90 litres.
A bit less than that. Call it 83.
83. Okay. Now, fueling up that car is going to take... You see where I'm going with this? Probably 6 minutes, something like that. It always seems to take me 6 minutes to fuel up my car, right? Now, Ferraris use a lot of fuel. They're in the 20, 19, 17 mile per gallon zone. So I don't believe this 10 hours attention in their first year. You'd spend at least 20 hours in the first year simply just pumping the fuel in. Yeah,
I've got this.
Well, it reminds me of that old cartoon. I think it was a Punch cartoon from the 1920s, where there's where somebody has pulled a huge American car into a tiny British garage, and the attendant, as it would have been then, he's filling it up, and he leans over and says to the driver, "Would you mind turning the engine off, mate? I can't keep up."
Yes, is that the bank? Yes, it's Tony Teixeira again. Please, can I borrow some more money for my A1GP race series? What? Well, sod you too. Damn. Well, guys, that's it then. The coffers are dry. A1 has no more money, and we'll just have to cancel the final race of the season due to take place in Mexico.
Oh, God, really?
I know, it's deeply embarrassing for us. If only we could find some other excuse that would cover our humiliation. Wait a second. Peter, pass me that phone again.
Gentlemen, I've called this emergency meeting of the World Health Organization because I have just received a very disturbing phone call. It was from a Mexican man with a strangely unconvincing South African accent that I'm gonna disregard for the time being. He says he's just got something called swine flu.
Gareth Jones on speed! Cynical us?
Nothing gets me more excited about Formula One than the prospect of new Formula One teams. I really mean this. Most of the time in the early part of this season, when we didn't know the future of what was now Brawn GP, we were speculating about ProDrive were going to have it, or who else was going to have it? I forget now. Virgin, we thought. This whole idea of these new identities for Formula One teams was really exciting. But news this week of the new budget caps that are going to be introduced to Formula One make it likely that a whole bunch of new teams will try and get into Formula One. Really makes the prospect of the next couple of seasons really exciting. The rumours are that, number one, ProDrive will come into Formula One, as possibly even Aston Martin, which is something we've thought about before.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I like that.
Gulf colours in an F1 car. Hang on, just imagine that for a minute. Gulf colours on an F1 car.
Yeah, they're going to mess it up. There'll be too many sponsors all over the place. It'll get messed up.
Yeah.
It won't look good on an F1 car. In a way, I like the idea, but I can't see it working somehow.
I don't want to see Aston Martin in F1 particularly, because I just think...
Take that, Ferrari.
He thinks the sport...
Say that, Ferrari. Come on, these are the footballers who are buying it.
There's not really take that, Ferrari, because I am very dubious about the benefit of a car company being in Formula One, and we're all happy that they are, but it's not take that Ferrari, because you think, well, Ferrari have been doing it for years and it's sort of important to them and it's almost part of their whole reason to be. Old Enzo only sold road cars to fund his racing, didn't he? So it's sort of integral to them, and now it's integral to their marketing effort, and they can bash on about F1's inspired technology in their gearboxes and all the rest of it in their road cars, even though that may not be,
But also, Aston have a very good recent track record in sports car racing.
Exactly. Why
and
that?
they're absolutely taking it to Ferrari. They're competing with and beating Ferrari in that arena. So, why do that in F1? I mean, I do like the idea of them running an F1 team if they can come in and do it well, which I believe ProDrive could do. ProDrive / Aston Martin could do. But I agree that they don't need to do it, because if you're doing
why take the risk?
Yeah.
I think it has more potential to do damage than it does to do well. If they win a bunch of races, will they sell any more road cars? But if they do incredibly badly and constantly blow up and come near the back, actually it could have quite a damaging effect. It's like they're
getting very good
good
value
in
out of the
GT
sports
racing
cars,
and doing Le Mans and stuff like that. It's like being the world's biggest folk band, but then going to go, okay, we'll do stadium rock now. Well, I mean, you could end up just looking rubbish, because unfortunately we already have U2 and everyone else. It's just like, why enter that shark tank when you can be a big fish in a smaller pond? Just less noble and excellent pond that is...
Coming back to what Zog said about spoiling it with lots of other sponsors on the paint scheme of a Gulf-coloured Aston Martin F1 car, I don't think that would happen, because with the new budget cap in F1, there's less pressure to have 100 sponsors. You could have just one title sponsor that'll pick up 90% of your money.
What about if you only allowed yourself to be sponsored by companies that had either orange or light blue logos? So orange mobile phones and... some kind of tampon, I would imagine. I can't think of anything else.
Perhaps.
That'll do well in Formula One, clearly. Okay, so ProDrive. Actually, I think Dave Richards' team would run a great racing team, whatever they were branded. I think they would do well. We've also heard that lovely Lola, which I begged for. Do you remember when we did the Lola song?
Yes.
On this show? The last line of that song I did, and I can't remember the episode number, but the last line was...
Don't fret, race fans, Lola isn't gone. I would take Lola back to racing in F1. Oh, Lola, make F1 your goal. Don't go away, Lola.
Make F1 your goal. I wanted them back in F1 as a team in their own right, not just a constructor. And if that happens, I'd be chuffed to bits. Although, I doubt their ability to compete. I think they can design a great race car.
But it's about running a team.
It's about running a team and not a race team, really, are they?
Let's have a return to customer chassis. Do you think that'll happen?
It is doing already after fashion. I think it is. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it is with
Toro
Rosso and Red Bull. Yes,
I
suppose it is, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a long time since Lola were in F1 as a team. So, if they were bad at running a team in the past, there's surely no continuity.
No, there isn't
at present.
No.
So I don't think the past is actually going to tell you much about how.
Hey, but this could be something where it's like old car companies being brought back, and it's sort of
Connaught,
and there's no continuity there. Yeah. There's all these rumours that one day BMW, which still owns the name Triumph, might bring Triumph back or something like that. There's no
Austin
continuity.
Healey,
but things like that. But let's have retro F1 names with no continuity of
personality.
Van Wall, and then I don't know,
Cooper Climax.
Exactly. Tyrrell.
Zytec. Not Zytec.
Simtech. Leighton House. We just do that thing we did a few shows back. We just keep naming rubbish Formula One teams for our own
footwork.
And
tacky it away.
It's the phrase that pays. And on that bombshell, that's another show we do.
Yeah, no, you can't do that one here.
iSport as well are possible.
This is really interesting. iSport run a brilliant GP2 team on an absolute what do you call a small budget? What's the word? Shoestring. Thank you.
Eddie Shoestring.
Yeah, thank you. And
gratuitous Trevor Eve reference there.
I had to bite my tongue to stop just naming TV detectives.
I just
like word association.
Serpico,
the Chinese detective.
So iSport would do well. But the most interesting one of the lot, I think, is ART Dallara. Have you heard about this? ART, who ran championship-winning GP2 teams for a couple of years. They're talking about having Dallara design, engineer, build a car for them, so pretty much a customer chassis. But they would own the intellectual property that is this car. And so ART, who can really run a race team, Dallara, who can really build a race car, that's a competitive team. I'd love to see them in F1. I'd be top.
Quite apart from the fact that this budget cap is making it easier for all of these new teams to potentially come into the sport, which I think we agree is probably a good thing. Apart from that, is the budget cap a good thing? Is this projected limit on what teams can spend, albeit they can spend more and then work within different technical limits, is it in principle a good thing?
It's hard to answer that question because the way that it's potentially structured is that it frees up the imagination of the teams who are spending less. They have unlimited testing. The idea of an almost Formula Libre, whereby these reduced budget cap teams are providing cars with extraordinary inventiveness, would be wonderful. I mean, I'd like to see that again, because that's what made F1 so exciting back in the 70s with the six-wheel Tyrrell P34. It's the best ever example of that.
So what you're saying is that slacken off the rules within reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think no traction control would be a good thing, and also, maybe active suspension. Because the thing, all of the sort of exciting innovations actually came because they'd never happened before.
That's
now
right,
this technology exists. It's almost they have to legislate against it, and there's a part of you that thinks, well, this is just you're almost stopping evolution, but at the same time, it is a sport, and it's
you do have to have that, but you will inevitably have that constant battle between the innovators in the teams who are inventing stuff to make the cars go quicker, and then the rule makers who are tightening up things to make the cars go slower again, to keep it within safe limits. So we're always going to have that, and so we are always going to see some innovations coming along which are going to be banned or removed. And if you have half a season or a season of advantage, then it's worth doing for the team.
Like having a double-deck diffuser at the moment. I mean, we're practically there, aren't we?
Yeah.
That, I think, is a very good example of something that you can't claim benefits road car technology,
Yes.
I mean, generally having a better understanding of aerodynamics and being able to add downforce to things probably does, but the details of whether you have a double deck diffuser and whether that's a hole or that isn't a hole doesn't mean a thing for road cars, whereas potentially some engine technology does. To go outside F1, I mean, the development of some of the diesel engines in Le Mans racing has been good for road cars.
Oh, aye. Yeah, it's still got to feed back in. It has to be relevant. I think any technology-based sport has to be able to justify itself in this sort of 21st century where everything's got to be, you can't be frivolous anymore. You have to be able to put something back into the real world.
I mean, frivolity is a good thing. I do love a bit of frivolity. But
this is the king of that, I hope.
But I would like to see how it would pan out if you have teams who are budget limited but have more technology available to them are competing against teams who are spending more money but have more restricted technology. I think that would be an interesting battle to see play out.
Did anyone see that episode of South Park recently where Stan's dad goes to the Large Hadron Collider and steals a superconducting magnet and fits it in one of those little wooden cars that roll down a track and creating warp speed? Just like the future of F1, in my opinion, that's what's going to happen. Two thoughts before we go. Two teams mooted to come into Formula One. One which you'll know about, which I don't think is going to happen. I really don't think they'll make it. They were going to be called US F1.
Oh, yes.
They're going to
Peter
be called,
Windsor's lot.
Yeah, USGPE they're going to be called.
What's the E stand for?
Engineering.
Oh, right, okay.
US Grand Prix Engineering.
It's not like S Club 7 where when people used to say, what does the S stand for? They'd go, the S stands for whatever you wanted to stand for. It really did. Yeah. And more cruel observers would say, well, let it stand for sod off then.
Yeah.
I didn't say that because I think Don't Stop Moving is one of the best pop songs ever written. But
I agree. And the last car manufacturer on the list here, which I don't know if anyone else has heard this, it's been mooted on some places on the internet. I don't know if it's substantial.
The internet where everything's slightly wrong.
Including this show. Remember, they get this show from the internet. Remember that. See what it says here? Read this out loud. See what it says? This last team could come into Formula One.
Lotus.
It's been mooted, and
I can't see that. However, I have some Lotus information.
Hold on. Okay, here's my Lotus information. I had a conversation with someone from Proton a few years ago that they were gearing up for an assault on Le Mans in the next 5 years. As Lotus. But Proton were going to be doing more of it. It's sort of a Lotus Proton hybrid.
Yes.
I was going to say, I could see Lotus doing things if somebody else was supplying the money and Lotus were sort of fronting it and providing the expertise.
Yeah, I don't think Proton... first of all, Proton had some sports car ambitions. They wanted to get into that. Let's not forget the Lotus Europa. Did I tell you, I met the man who's bought the Europa the other day? Because they clearly only sold one.
They've sold one.
They've sold one.
Yeah.
I met the bloke who bought it.
Oh, well
nice
done.
Guy
Did he enjoy it?
Yeah, he is enjoying it. Hello, mate, if you're listening. But the Europa was meant to be a Proton. And if you the design was first leaked to the world because they registered design, as a lot of car companies do now. They'll take some very, very sort of functional white room shots of the clay model or whatever to just register the design with the patents office, and often they have to do that before it's announced. And the more wily journalist will go do a little look on the patent office,
and the more wily Chinese car companies will take a look at it and go, "Hey, we'll copy that.
Get the photocopier." So but the original patent or design office registered pictures all had hole on the nose where the Proton badge would have gone, not the Lotus badge. And then Proton got cold feet of their sports car ambitions and said, well, to Lotus you might as well have that. And they went, oh, I suppose then. And then they put it on sale and one man bought it. But I don't think that Proton are pursuing that particular avenue. And secondly, they're basically in a bit of trouble at the moment because the highly protectionist Malaysian home market for them, which has kept them going ever since they were first invented by the Malaysian government in the 80s, is being relaxed increasingly, and more car makers are sort of locally assembling cars there to get round high import taxes. Proton are a bit up against the wall. I don't think this would be the time for them to spend a load of money on motorsport.
Renault were talking about buying it, I believe,
yeah, there have been a few people who've been talking about buying it.
I say, I took my wife to a bondage party in a Proton-branded sports car designed by Lotus.
Europa?
Yes, of course I did. It was a bondage party. You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed. I
haven't told you my Lotus news.
Oh, I thought that was it.
My Lotus news, my proper Lotus news, which, depending on when the show goes up, might be a bit of an exclusive, albeit a completely lame one. The Lotus Evora.
Evora indeed, Richard.
Gareth. The one that will do the job that the Europa never did, the more civilised Lotus. And it's not based on the Elise. It's the first new Lotus in 100 million
Which
years.
you've been advocating for ages, haven't you?
And it's an all-new car. It's 2+2.
Huge chassis.
It's more expensive than you'd think. It's like 47 grand for the two-seater and 49 grand for the 2+2. And then you've got to put some options on it. And so it's not cheap. But I know someone, the first person in the world outside of Lotus to drive it, and he say it good.
I think
I don't know why we're surprised, because Lotus generally make good cars, but no, there was a worry that this, they've always get to 2+2. It looks better in the flesh. I've seen it at the Geneva show. It looks a lot better in the flesh than it does in the pictures, and apparently it drives absolutely brilliantly. And so happy times. I'm really chuffed about that.
We've been promised one.
Have we? Yeah. When you say we, do you mean you?
We mean Gareth Jones on Speed.
Really? Well, let's get the 2+2. We can all cram in.
Yeah.
Bring Violet as well, and maybe Leon the cat. His distinctive bell sound.
You've been listening to the Leon the Cat Show with his distinctive bell sound, featuring Zog.
Goodbye.
Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
And me, Gareth Jones. See you in 12 days for another one. Ta-da.
Get more info on this show at garethjones.tv. Write to the show on Speed at garethjones.tv or subscribe for free at the iTunes Store. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Whizbang.